In the bustling heart of Los Angeles' Little Tokyo district, where neon signs flickered against the evening fog, rolling in from the Pacific, stood a modest izakaya called Sakura's Lantern. The place was a hidden gem among the tourist traps, its wooden facade weathered by years of salt air and urban grit. Inside, the air hummed with the low chatter of locals. Office workers unwinding after long shifts, families sharing plates of yakitori, and the occasional group of friends nursing sake under the warm glow of paper lanterns. It was a spot where the rhythm of American life blended seamlessly with echoes of Japanese heritage, from the sizzle of teriyaki on the grill to the faint strains of enka music from an old radio in the back. Kenji Tanaka sat alone at the far end of the bar, his broad shoulders hunched over a half-empty glass of whiskey. At 58, he carried the weight of his past like an invisible tattoo, full-sleeve Irizumi hidden beneath a crisp button-down shirt. His face, lined with the scars of old rivalries, remained impassive as he scanned the room with eyes that had seen too much. Kenji was no ordinary patron. He was Oyabun of a small Yamaguchi-gumi affiliate that had quietly embedded itself in the city's underworld since the 1980s. His operations spanned money laundering through local real estate fronts and subtle extortion of import businesses, all while maintaining a low profile to evade the FBI's watchful gaze. Everyone in the restaurant knew to ignore him. Waitstaff avoided his table, regulars averted their eyes, and even the owner, Mr. Sato, kept his distance, honoring the unspoken code of silence that protected them all from the Yakuza's reach. Across the room, Mia Reynolds wiped down a counter, her dark hair tied back in a practical ponytail. At 29, she had moved to LA from Seattle 5 years earlier, chasing a dream of culinary school that fizzled under student debt and endless shifts. Born to a Japanese-American mother and an African-American father, Mia spoke fluent Japanese from childhood visits to her grandmother's home in Kyoto. She had picked up the language naturally, absorbing stories of family honor and resilience amid the cherry blossoms. Now, it was just a tool for better tips in places like this, where tourists mangled phrases from guidebooks. As she glanced at Kenji, she noticed his untouched edamame and the way his fingers drummed a subtle rhythm on the bar. A sign of impatience she recognized from old samurai films her mother loved. The dinner rush peaked around 8 p.m., with the scent of miso soup mingling with exhaust from passing cars on First Street. Kenji signaled for the check, but the bartender pretended not to see, busying himself with a stack of glasses. Frustration etched deeper lines on Kenji's face. He had come here for discretion, not dismissal. In Japan, such respect was automatic, but in America, the Yakuza's influence felt diluted, like sake watered down for Western palates. He muttered under his breath in Japanese, a quiet complaint about ungrateful fools, his voice barely audible over the clatter of dishes. Mia, overhearing the words as she refilled a water pitcher nearby, paused. It was a simple phrase, kono basho wa yabai na, meaning the place felt off. Without thinking, she approached his table, her apron dusted with flour from the kitchen. Sumimasen, okyaku-sama. Nanika okashi desu ka? Anata no gohan wa mada tabete imasen yo? She said softly, her accent carrying the warmth of Osaka dialect her grandmother had taught her. "Excuse me, sir. Is something wrong? You haven't touched your food yet." Kenji's head snapped up, his eyes narrowing in surprise. For the first time that evening, the room seemed to hold its breath. No one spoke to him like this, not in Japanese, not with such casual respect. The other patrons froze mid-conversation, sensing the shift. Mia realized her mistake too late. Whispers rippled through the izakaya like a sudden breeze. Kenji studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly, the tension in his shoulders easing just a fraction. "I daijubu sore wa yoku dekinai hida," he replied. "No, it's fine. Just a bad day." As Mia returned to the counter, her heart pounding, she couldn't shake the feeling that she had just stepped into something deeper than a simple order. Outside, the city lights blurred in the drizzle, and Kenji finished his drink, leaving a generous tip that no one dared touch until he was gone. Little did Mia know, her words had pierced the armor of isolation that kept a mafia boss at bay, setting in motion a chain of events that would draw her into the shadows of Little Tokyo's hidden world. The next evening, Sakura's lantern buzzed with its usual after-work crowd, but an undercurrent of unease lingered from the night before. Mr. Sato had pulled Mia aside during her break, his voice low as he adjusted his glasses. "You shouldn't have spoken to him like that," he warned, glancing toward the door as if expecting trouble. The owner, a second-generation immigrant who had opened the izakaya in the 1970s, knew the Yakuza's subtle grip on the neighborhood, from protection fees disguised as consulting to the occasional disappearance of competitors. Kenji's group had ties to broader networks, laundering funds through Asian import shops and even dabbling in low-level arms deals with affiliates in Hawaii, all while the LAPD's Asian Crimes Task Force circled like wary sharks. Mia shrugged it off, focusing on the dinner prep, slicing fresh sashimi under the fluorescent kitchen lights, the knife's rhythmic chop a soothing counterpoint to her racing thoughts. She had grown up in Seattle's International District, where her mixed heritage made her a bridge between worlds, translating for her mother's friends at community festivals or navigating English-only schools with quiet determination. Japanese was her secret weapon, a link to the resilience her grandmother embodied during internment camp stories from World War II. But last night's encounter replayed in her mind. Kenji's surprised gratitude, the way his guarded expression softened. It felt like cracking open a door she wasn't sure she wanted to enter. By 9 p.m., the restaurant thinned out, leaving a few stragglers nursing beers. Kenji returned, slipping into the same corner seat as if drawn by an invisible thread. This time, he ordered directly from Mia when she passed by, his voice steady. "Onigiri to ocha, onegai, soshite, arigatou, kinu wa. Rice balls and tea, please. And thank you for yesterday." Mia nodded, hiding her nervousness behind a professional smile, and prepared the order with care. As she served him, she added a small side of pickled plums, umeshu, without being asked, a gesture her grandmother swore could mend any strained conversation. They talked haltingly at first, Kenji probing gently about her background while avoiding his own. He learned of her dreams deferred, the long hours funding night classes in business at a community college. In turn, he shared fragments, immigrating from Osaka in the 1980s to escape Yakuza infighting, building a life in LA's underbelly where alliances with local Korean and Vietnamese groups kept operations smooth. "America is different," he said, staring into his tea. "Here, respect must be earned, not demanded. Watashi no sekai wa sabishi. My world is lonely." Mia listened, her empathy overriding caution. She saw not a boss, but a man adrift in a city that prized individualism over tradition. Word spread quickly in Little Tokyo's tight-knit community. By closing time, a shady figure in a leather jacket lingered outside, watching as Mia locked up. He was one of Kenji's underlings, sent to assess the talkative waitress. Unbeknownst to her, Kenji's presence had drawn attention from rivals, a smaller Inagawa Kai faction eyeing his territory for drug routes from Thailand. The underling reported back via a burner phone, his tone laced with suspicion. This woman could be a liability or an unexpected ally. As Mia walked home through the misty streets, lined with mural-covered walls depicting samurai and cherry trees, she felt eyes on her back for the first time, the weight of unspoken loyalties pressing in. The conversation marked a turning point. Kenji began visiting regularly, his orders evolving into quiet dinners where Mia joined him during slow hours. She taught him slang from American anime dubs, laughing at his puzzled reactions, while he shared proverbs about endurance, gammon, that resonated with her own struggles. Yet, beneath the warmth, danger simmered. One night, as they discussed her plans to open a food truck, Kenji's phone buzzed with an urgent message. A rival had torched a warehouse tied to his laundering scheme. His face hardened, the oyabun resurfacing. "Stay away from this," he urged her, but Mia, sensing his isolation, replied, "You don't have to face it alone." In that moment, the barriers crumbled further, pulling her deeper into the web of loyalty and risk that defined his life. Weeks blurred into a fragile routine at Sakura's Lantern, where the clink of chopsticks against bowls masked growing tensions. Little Tokyo streets, alive with the honk of delivery trucks and the aroma of street vendors selling takoyaki, hid a brewing storm. Kenji's visits had become a quiet anchor for Mia, their conversations weaving threads of trust amid the izakaya's steamy chaos. He opened up about his Yakuza roots, not the violence but the code of Ninkyo, the chivalrous path that once guided groups like his in post-war Japan. In LA, though, it twisted into survival, negotiating with FBI informants who posed as business partners or diffusing disputes with triads over smuggling lanes from San Francisco's Chinatown. Mia's life shifted subtly. She saved tips for her food truck idea, inspired by Kenji's tales of Osaka street food markets. Her shifts ended with him waiting outside, offering a ride in his unassuming sedan through neighborhoods where graffiti-tagged walls told stories of gang rivalries. One rainy afternoon, as they drove past the Japanese-American National Museum, its exhibits on resilience a poignant backdrop, Kenji confessed a vulnerability. "I came here to escape the old ways, but they follow like shadows. My daughter in Japan. She doesn't know this side of me." His voice cracked, revealing the personal toll of a life divided by oceans and secrets. Trouble erupted on a humid Thursday night. Rivals from the Inagawa Kai, sensing weakness in Kenji's growing distraction, sent a group to shake down Sakura's Lantern for protection fees. They burst in during the lull, tattooed arms flashing as they overturned tables and demanded cash from Mr. Sato. The owner paled, stammering apologies, while patrons scattered like leaves in a gale. Mia, behind the bar, recognized the threat from Kenji's warnings. These were the upstarts pushing into Yakuza turf, fueled by declining memberships back home and aggressive expansion in the US. Kenji, who had just arrived for his usual spot, rose slowly, his presence commanding silence. The leader sneered, dismissing him as a relic, until Mia stepped forward. "Yamete! Kono oya-san wa sonke suru beki hito desu. Anata tachi no bosu mo shiteiru hazuyo," she said firmly, her Japanese cutting through the chaos. "Stop! This gentleman deserves respect. Your boss must know that." The intruders hesitated, caught off guard by her fluency and the implication of insider knowledge. Kenji nodded to her, then addressed them in clipped tones, invoking old alliances that traced back to shared operations in Hawaii. The standoff ended without blows. The rivals backed off, muttering retreats, their plan foiled by an unexpected voice. In the aftermath, as the staff righted chairs under the dim lanterns, Kenji pulled Mia aside. Gratitude shone in his eyes, mingled with concern. "You saved more than my pride tonight. But this world, it claims what it touches." Mia, adrenaline fading, realized the depth of her involvement. Her words had elevated her from bystander to confidant, drawing lines in the sand against encroaching threats. That night, over shared ramen in the quiet kitchen, they forged a pact, not of crime, but of mutual support. Kenji promised to help fund her food truck, using legitimate channels from his real estate contacts, while Mia vowed to be the bridge he lacked in this foreign land. The incident rippled outward, earning Kenji reluctant respect from his network and whispers of a secret advisor among underlings. For Mia, it crystallized her resilience, echoing her grandmother's stories of standing firm amid adversity. Yet, as sirens wailed in the distance, perhaps LAPD responding to a tip, the fragility of their bond loomed large, hinting at conflicts yet to unfold. Months had passed since the tense standoff at Sakura's Lantern, and the rhythm of Little Tokyo had settled into a deceptive calm under the relentless California sun. The district, nestled between the skyscrapers of downtown Los Angeles and the sprawling freeways that snaked toward the coast, pulsed with a unique energy, a fusion of American hustle and Japanese tradition. Street vendors hawked fresh mochi and taiyaki from colorful carts along First Street, their sweet aromas mingling with the exhaust from delivery trucks rumbling past historic brick buildings adorned with murals of geisha and samurai. Cherry blossom trees, planted decades ago by community elders, now shaded sidewalks where families strolled after temple visits, their laughter a counterpoint to the distant hum of the metro rail. It was a place where the past and present collided daily, much like the lives of its residents, who navigated the complexities of identity in a city that celebrated diversity while harboring shadows beneath its neon glow. Mia's food truck, Kyoto Bites, had become a fixture in this vibrant tapestry. Parked strategically near the Japanese-American Cultural and Community Center, its sleek white exterior was wrapped in a custom mural depicting stylized cherry blossoms drifting over an urban skyline, blending her grandmother's Kyoto memories with LA's gritty skyline. The truck's menu was a testament to her ingenuity. Teriyaki glazed tacos stuffed with marinated beef and pickled ginger, sushi rolls infused with avocado and crab from local markets, and matcha lattes spiked with almond milk for the health-conscious crowd. Business boomed during lunch hours, drawing office workers from nearby high-rises and tourists snapping photos for social media. Mia manned the window with practiced efficiency, her dark hair now streaked with subtle highlights from a rare day off at a Koreatown salon, calling out orders in a mix of English and Japanese that charmed her regulars. Kenji's role in making this dream reality had been subtle but pivotal. True to his word after the incident, he had funneled funds through a legitimate real estate contact, a quiet partner in his network who owned several nondescript properties in the San Gabriel Valley. These investments, ostensibly for community revitalization, provided the seed money for the truck without triggering red flags from the IRS or the FBI's Organized Crime Division. Kenji had explained the process during one of their late-night talks at the izakaya, his voice low over steaming bowls of ramen. "In my world, everything must appear clean," he had said, tracing a finger along the edge of his bowl. The Oyabun-Kobun structure demands loyalty, but in America it also requires layers of protection. My Wakagashira handles the finances, ensuring no direct ties lead back to me. Mia had nodded, absorbing the glimpse into his hierarchical realm, where the Oyabun commanded absolute respect from Kobun-like surrogate sons, and positions like Psycho-Common advisors and Shategashira captains enforced the code of Jingi, justice and duty that bound them all. Their friendship had evolved into something resembling family amid the daily grind. Mornings often began at the Grand Central Market downtown, where Mia sourced fresh produce from Asian importers. Daikon radishes crisp as new snow, shiitake mushrooms earthy and plump. Kenji would join her occasionally, his unassuming sedan pulling up at dawn, offering insights on reliable suppliers, while steering clear of those tainted by smuggling rings that funneled contraband from ports in Long Beach. "The Inagawa Kai remnants still eye these routes," he confided once, as they haggled over prices under the market's vaulted ceilings. Their Shatei, younger brothers in the hierarchy, push harder now, with memberships dropping back in Japan due to stricter laws. His knowledge stemmed from decades navigating the Yakuza's multi-layered structure. At the top, the Kumicho, or Oyabun like himself, issuing orders to Wakagashira, seconds in command who oversaw subsidiaries, down to the Wakashu intermediates enforcing day-to-day operations. It was a pyramid of allegiance, rigid yet adaptable in the fluid criminal landscape of the U.S., where alliances with local triads or Mexican cartels could mean survival or downfall. Evenings brought them back to Sakura's lantern, now a safer haven thanks to the respect Kenji's intervention had garnered. Mr. Sato had reinforced the doors and installed discreet cameras, funded indirectly through Kenji's network, while the staff whispered gratefully about the guardian who kept threats at bay. Over shared plates of sashimi, tuna sliced paper thin and glistening with soy, Kenji opened up about his regrets, the personal fractures hidden beneath his stoic facade. "My daughter Aiko was just 10 when I left Osaka," he shared one humid night, the air thick with the scent of grilling eel from the kitchen. "The Yakuza life pulled me here in the 80s, chasing opportunities in America's ports, but it cost me everything. She writes rarely, thinks I'm just a businessman importing electronics." His voice carried the weight of gammon, endurance, a virtue his mother had instilled during post-war hardships, when Yakuza groups like the Tekiya street merchants evolved into organized syndicates, offering protection in a rebuilding Japan. Mia listened intently, her own stories weaving in like threads in a kimono. She spoke of her childhood in Seattle's rainy international district, where her Japanese-American mother ran a small bookstore stocked with manga and history texts on internment camps, and her African-American father worked as a mechanic, teaching her the value of fixing what was broken. "Languages became my bridge," she explained, as they walked the lantern-lit paths of the Japanese village plaza after closing. "Japanese connected me to Grandma's tales of resilience, English to Dad's optimism. Opening this truck, it's my way of building something lasting, not just surviving." Kenji nodded, his lined face softening in the glow of paper lanterns strung between shops selling incense and porcelain. These outings extended to American customs she introduced, a community barbecue in Echo Park, where families gathered under jacaranda trees, heavy with purple blooms. Kenji, dressed in a simple polo to blend in, awkwardly manned the grill, flipping skewers of yakitori while dodging curious questions about his import business from chatty neighbors. Laughter came easier to him there, a rare crack in the armor forged by years of hierarchical commands and enforced silence. Yet beneath this growing warmth, the shadows of Kenji's world loomed ever closer. The Yakuza's influence in LA, though diminished by federal crackdowns since the 1990s, persisted through subtle channels: money laundering via nail salons in Koreatown, extortion of construction firms rebuilding after earthquakes, and quiet disputes over gambling dens hidden in the San Fernando Valley. Kenji's affiliate, a modest branch of the Yamaguchi-gumi, maintained about 24 kobun, organized in a tight pyramid, himself as Oyabun, his Wakagashira handling logistics from a nondescript office in Torrance, and Shitegashira captains overseeing street-level enforcers who collected fees without fanfare. Anti-gang ordinances and FBI sanctions had frozen assets and isolated members, forcing adaptations like legitimate fronts in real estate that preserved Little Tokyo's aging structures from developers' grasp. The code of Ninkyo, chivalry, once meant protecting the weak, Kenji mused during a drive along the LA River, its concrete banks a stark contrast to Japan's winding streams. Now it's about not getting caught while doing it. The climax erupted on a sweltering August afternoon, as monsoon-like rains unexpectedly lashed the city, turning streets into rivers of debris. Federal agents from the FBI's Asian Organized Crime Task Force raided a warehouse in the Arts District, just blocks from Little Tokyo, a cavernous space masquerading as an art supply depot, but housing crates of smuggled electronics tied to international trafficking. The operation uncovered links to Thai drug routes and arms deals funneled through Hawaii, threatening to ensnare not just the Inagawa Kai rivals, but Kenji's peripheral operations. Sirens wailed through the downpour, helicopters chopping the air overhead as news vans from KTLA and CNN swarmed First Street, their reporters in rain slickers shouting questions at fleeing workers. The raid stemmed from a tip months in the making, pieced together from wiretaps and informants embedded in the ports. Unbeknownst to Mia until that chaotic moment, her own words had inadvertently sparked the alert. Weeks earlier, during a slow shift at the food truck, she had confided in a loquacious artist named Javier who sketched murals for the community center, about the dangers she sensed in Kenji's world. "There's this guy connected to, old school stuff," she had said vaguely, wiping down the counter as thunder rumbled in the distance. "He helps people here, but it's risky. I worry about the warehouses downtown." Javier, ever the networker, had shared the snippet at a gallery opening where an undercover informant overheard and passed it up the chain. Now, as Mia sheltered under the truck's awning, watching armored vehicles cordon off the block, her phone buzzed with frantic texts from Mr. Sato. "Feds everywhere. Kenji's name mentioned." Kenji arrived minutes later, his sedan splashing through puddles as he pulled up to the truck. Rain plastered his hair to his forehead, but his eyes burned with a mix of urgency and betrayal. He ushered her inside the cramped space, the scent of soy and sesame oil heavy in the humid air. "Was it you?" he demanded, his voice steady but laced with hurt, the Oyabun's command slipping through. Risking everything for what? A tip that could unravel years of careful balance. Mia's heart sank, tears mixing with raindrops on her cheeks. She explained haltingly. The conversation with Javier had been casual, born of concern after overhearing Kenji's underlings discuss a shipment during a drop-off. "I didn't name names. I spoke up because no one else would listen to you, Kenji. To the man behind the title." Her voice broke, switching to Japanese for emphasis. "Anata wa tada no bosu janai. Gamansuru dake janakute. Mitai ka o erabu no yo." You're not just a boss. Endurance isn't just surviving, it's choosing a better path. The plea struck deep, echoing the Jingi code that had drawn Kenji into the Yakuza as a young man in Osaka's teeming streets. He paced the narrow confines of the truck, rain drumming on the roof like impatient fingers. Memories flooded him, his initiation ritual, Yubitsume, severing a fingertip to atone for a failure, under the watchful eye of his own Oyabun, the hierarchical oaths binding Kobun to parent-like leaders, the slow erosion of traditional Ninkyo ideals amid America's profit-driven underworld. The raid spared his direct involvement. The tip had been too vague to pinpoint, but it forced a reckoning. Rivals would exploit any perceived weakness, and his Wakagashira urged retaliation through back channels. Yet staring at Mia's resolute face, Kenji saw a reflection of the surrogate family he had lost, not bound by blood or tattoos, but by genuine loyalty. Over the following weeks, as the rains gave way to crisp autumn air, Kenji took decisive steps. He convened a secretive meeting with his inner circle in a back room of a Torrance tea house, the air thick with green tea steam and tension. Dismantling the riskiest elements, he redirected resources, shuttering the warehouse ties and pivoting to fully legitimate ventures, like co-opting his real estate fronts to fund affordable housing in Little Tokyo. This preserved the district's heritage, restoring aging pagoda-style buildings and supporting cultural festivals, while providing jobs for former Kobun transitioning out. "The hierarchy must evolve," he told his Wakagashira, a stern man with a shaved head and faded Irizumi. "No more shadows. We build bridges, like she did for me." The second-in-command nodded reluctantly, respecting the Oyabun's authority, though whispers of dissent rippled through the lower ranks of Shatei and Wakashu. For Mia, the ordeal crystallized her own resilience, mirroring her grandmother's stories of internment survivors who rebuilt lives with quiet defiance. She expanded the food truck menu, adding family recipes like Odin's stew simmered with root vegetables, and hired a part-time helper from the community college, a young Nikki student eager to learn the business. Kenji's support continued, now openly. He attended a small opening event for the truck, mingling awkwardly with customers and even sharing a laugh over a mispronounced order. More profoundly, he penned a letter to Aiko, his daughter, in their shared Japanese script. Mailed from a post office in Pasadena to avoid traces, it detailed his regrets and the changes spurred by an unlikely friend. "I found gammon in connection, not isolation," he wrote, enclosing a photo of Little Tokyo's lanterns. Weeks later, a tentative reply arrived, a simple note promising a visit, the first crack in years of silence. As autumn deepened, the streets of Little Tokyo transformed for the annual cultural festival, where taiko drums echoed off building facades and stalls brimmed with crafts from artisans nationwide. Paper lanterns bobbed in the evening breeze, casting warm light on throngs in yukata and jeans, celebrating resilience amid diversity. Kenji and Mia stood together near the food truck, now a hub of activity, serving fusion treats to festival-goers. The once-ignored boss engaged with neighbors, chatting about real estate preservation with elders, nodding to Mr. Sato over sake cups, his presence no longer a shadow, but a pillar. Mia watched, pride swelling as children laughed nearby, oblivious to the hierarchies that had nearly torn worlds apart. Their bond, forged in quiet conversations and tested by storms both literal and figurative, proved the power of a single voice in a foreign tongue. In America's melting pot, where Yakuza structures clashed with democratic ideals, Mia's Japanese had unraveled Kenji's isolation, fostering unexpected alliances that echoed through the city's vibrant, nuanced tapestry. Challenges remained: the FBI's gaze, rivals' lingering threats, the pull of old codes. But together they chose paths of light, ensuring Little Tokyo's spirit endured, one resilient step at a time.